So good to have you join us today. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee-Ji-yoon in Seoul. We have plenty on our plate this afternoon, so let's get started with today's highlights. Deflation concerns are on the rise as Korea's consumer price growth is looking to mark the lowest in more than 6 decades. We sit down with the CEO of Switzerland Tourism to talk about the country's booming tourism industry and how Korea can make the best use of its abundant natural resources to bring in more tourists. We begin with Korea's producer price index, which has slipped to its lowest level in 5.5 years, largely due to low global oil prices. The Bank of Korea says October's index dropped to 99.75, down 0.6% from the month before. The last time the index was below the benchmark 100 was in April 2010. Breaking it down by sector, the price index of coal and petroleum products slumped more than 30% on year last month. The index covering all industrial goods dropped 7.6% on year, while agricultural and fisheries product prices rose slightly over 2% on year in October. Meanwhile, the country's key measure of inflation is forecast to fall well below 1%, marking the lowest level since data were compiled in the 1940s. And experts say deflation concerns are getting more real. Our Kim Min-ji has this report.
Korea's consumer price growth is expected to be sub 1% this year. A majority of local brokerage houses expect inflation of between 0.6 to 0.7% this year from a year ago. Last month, the Bank of Korea said prices will likely rise 0.7% this year, down 0.2 percentage points from its previous projection in July. If it pans out like that, it would mark the lowest growth since related data was compiled some 7 decades ago. Statistics Korea data shows consumer prices have been growing less than 1% for this year, and it's on track to remain in the 0% range for the first time in 16 years this year. From 2000 to 2014, average inflation in Korea was 2.9%. In 2013 and 2014, it recorded 1.3% growth on year. So far, consumer price growth this year stands at 0.6%, but if we exclude tobacco prices, which nearly doubled in January, experts say inflation would actually be around 0. This, coupled with the fragile recovery momentum, is raising concerns Korea is heading toward a period of deflation. The government has vowed to closely monitor factors that can influence inflation and prevent any sudden spikes in utility fees that can directly impact the everyday lives of ordinary people. But experts remain skeptical. They say tepid global oil prices as well as a slow global recovery will continue to keep consumer prices low. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
At the APEC Economic Leaders meeting in Manila on this Thursday, President Park Geun-hye will lay out specific policy directives for inclusive growth based on Korea's experience. The presidential office of Cheongwade says she'll explain Korea's drive to nurture a creative economy and create jobs for vulnerable groups like women and the youth. She's also expected to push for bolstering rural communities as well as for the inclusion of small and mid-sized firms in global value chains. In a written interview with the APEC Secretariat earlier this week, President Park has said that growth as usual was no longer an option and that the Forum of 21 Pacific Rim nations should quicken plans to enhance economic integration. Korea's largest conglomerate Samsung Group shed thousands of jobs over the year, mainly due to slowing growth and weaker profitability in its core businesses. And industry watchers say there's more coming up in its future shakeup. Our Park Se-young tells us more.
Samsung Group has cut over 5,000 jobs over the past year as it works to reduce costs in the face of a lackluster economic growth. According to the Financial Supervisory Service, the combined workforce at Samsung's key business units stood at over 212,000 at the end of September, compared to over 217,000 in the previous year. Samsung Electronics had about 98,000 workers on the payroll in the third quarter this year, down nearly 1,000 from a year earlier. And the number of employees at Samsung Display also dropped by nearly 1,400 to about 25,000. Other arms, including Samsung C&T and Samsung Engineering, also laid off over 600 and 700 workers respectively over the same period. Samsung Electronics has been suffering from weakening profitability in its smartphone business as Chinese manufacturers continue to roll out low-price models. Foreign holdings of the tech giant also dropped to 50.5% as of Tuesday, marking the lowest level in 19 months. Samsung Electronics' foreign stock ownership has been falling since July, especially after the company announced its plans to buy back its own shares to enhance shareholder value. While its third quarter earnings soared nearly 30% on-year on the back of strong chip sales and a weaker local currency, analysts say growing uncertainties have turned away foreign investors. Industry watchers say Samsung, scheduled to carry out a reshuffle among its executives next month, will continue its efforts to cut jobs in the near future. The group may also carry out structural reorganization in line with its latest efforts to pave the way for a leadership transition. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
Last month, Korea produced the most number of jobs in 5 months. But among those seeking work, there's growing concern over the quality of jobs available. Now, many of the new positions added can be characterized as marginal part-time work, which means 17 hours or less a week with zero benefits and protection. Our Eunice Kim has more.
1 to 3 hours of work a day. These are hourly jobs, elementary school teacher assistants or caregivers, for example, so-called marginal part-time work that adds up to no more than 17 hours per week. Under Korean law, people who work less than 15 hours weekly are not protected under workers' comp should they be injured on the job, nor do they have access to state-backed insurance plans, including national pension. Severance pay, bonuses, overtime, of course, all out of the picture. Such jobs made up a minute portion of total jobs in 1995, at 300,000. But they sharply expanded following the Asian financial crisis as companies looked to flexibility amid faltering profits, and are on an upward swing yet again. In the one-year period since October of last year, this marginal part-time job category expanded at the fastest rate in new posts added, logging nearly 9% in growth. Stretch that comparison out by another 9 years to 2005, and we see that, in fact, that increase multiplies to 70%, to nearly 1.2 million jobs last month. So why the upsurge? Over the years, there's been a movement of jobs from manufacturing to the service sector that often employs part-time workers. On top of that, critics say the government's drive to create more flexible work for homemakers looking to re-enter the job market has backfired by bumping up the number of jobs created, but bringing their quality down.
Such jobs are loaded with instability, wages are severely poor, and you're blocked from transitioning to a permanent position. You can say it's a job that offers pretty much no protection.
Even if a worker juggles several marginal part-time jobs, the hours do not add up to benefits. Knowing this, some companies use a loophole to their advantage to slice up an 8-hour shift into several gigs. The issue has been addressed in a parliamentary bill, a bill that's been tabled at the National Assembly, where it still waits to be debated. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
With hopes of revitalizing the sluggish domestic tourism sector, which seems to be still recovering from the fallout of the MERS outbreak that pummeled the economy earlier this year, the Korean government has set the years 2016, 2017, and 2018 as years to visit Korea. And today we have a special guest joining us in the studio. Mr. Jurg Schmid is the CEO and President of Switzerland Tourism. And he's here to tell us how Switzerland, a country that ranks in top tables when it comes to global competitiveness in travel and tourism, is supporting and boosting its tourism sector, and what Korea might learn from it. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Welcome.
All right, so is this your first time visiting Korea? If it is, what's your impression of it?
It's in fact my second time. Coming from a small country that has only a population of 8.2 million, being in such a big city, in a vibrant city, it's always amazing. And it has changed a lot. It is 15 years ago since I visited it first. So it has changed a lot. It's impressive. It's a lively city.
All right, well, let's talk tourism a little bit. So when it comes to the tourism industry, how big of a role does it play in the country's economy? And how much of an effort is your government putting into boosting the tourism sector?
Tourism in Switzerland plays a vital and big role. It's one of the most important business sectors. In fact, the third biggest export sector, right after the watch industry. And furthermore, especially in the remote places of Switzerland, in the regions, it's by far the biggest employer. So tourism is important, and tourism is the most important image factor and brand factor of a country. So Switzerland is very much defined by its pictures of the mountains, the Alps, the beauty of Switzerland. So it plays a vital role.
What kind of efforts is your government putting into boosting the sector even more?
We know that tourism continues to play an important role. So we have laws in place that really support tourism, that opens markets. We try to cooperate with countries that we also hope that people and tourists come from. And we as the organization have the mission to promote Switzerland worldwide, and we do so in 23 countries.
All right. Well, so early last year, President Park Geun-hye visited Switzerland, and there the two countries signed an MOU on cooperation on tourism. So since then, what kind of changes have we seen in tourism exchange between the two countries?
A big change. We always had for years a great respect to each other, but now we start to work together. This is why I'm here. I had the pleasure to attend today a congress about development of mountain tourism. We have a history of, in summer, 250 years, in winter, 150 years. We hold the first Olympic Winter Games in Switzerland. So we are very much open to share, to learn from Korea, and to share our findings and insights of our long way we have gone in mountain and rural tourism.
All right. Well, when it comes to global competitiveness in travel and tourism, obviously Switzerland ranks in very top, along with France and Germany, meaning it comes with a lot of know-hows in the sector. So what kind of advice do you have for Korea, and what do you think is Korea's strength when it comes to tourism?
Well, I think I can't say what's the advice from our side to Korea. I can express how we have done it and how we have managed to stay on top when it comes to the World Competitiveness Report. And I think every country has to answer a very strategic question. Am I better or am I cheaper? So in tourism, the question is, do you differentiate by price or by quality? Now for Switzerland, the answer is very clear. Given the cost structure we have, we aim for quality. So we don't go for a pure mass tourism, we go for a quality tourism, for values. And I think this is a much more sustainable way.
I guess now Korea is trying to kind of take after what's the so-called Swiss mobility, from what I know. I think Korea is trying to make its own version of it. Can you tell us more about what Switzerland mobility is and how that success came about?
It's a dense network of hiking trails, biking, cycling trails and tracks through Switzerland's nature. In fact, it's a system of giving people access to the beauty of nature in Switzerland. But it's much more than just the infrastructure. It starts online, where you have all the information. It has an organized luggage transfer, and it's closely linked to the public transportation system we have. So you don't have to hike in a circle. That means you have to come back where you start. So you carry on over a region. It can be a multiple days hiking trip, and When you leave in the morning, you leave your luggage. When you arrive, it's there in the hotel. And we also realized by giving people access in a very structured way and in a controlled way, by giving access, we see that the will and the wish to protect nature increases. So the more people see the beauty of the nature, the more they realize how important it is to protect nature for the next generation, and obviously in our industry for the next year of tourism to come, yeah?
All right, so what do you think Korea should do in order to see success in its own Korea mobility? I mean, it is rich in mountain tourism resources.
I mean, it is, and I mean, Korea is such a beautiful country that offers everything tourists are seeking for. It's a combination of modernness, of history, of culture, and beautiful nature. I mean, you have mountains and sea. We don't have the sea. We're very jealous for that. So I think the important thing is do it step by step and do it in a very sound way and do it in respect and harmony with nature, because the reason why people travel to discover the mountains, it's the nature, not the infrastructure of the hiking trail.
That is very true.
And I think it's important in mountain tourism to give access to the mountains to everybody. So we have throughout the country a network, a controlled, selective network of cable cars that give everybody, even handicapped people, access to the mountains. But do it step by step and don't rush too fast.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you. My great pleasure. Thank you.
That wraps it up for today, but we'll be back tomorrow at the same time, same place, so don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching and have a great day, everyone.